But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So I wanted to come and ask you a question and also make another statement and confirm something that I've been spewing about for the last month or so. And we'll do that a little bit later on in the show. I want to ask you a question real quick. Who do you think is a candidate to have a breakout season? And we have these conversations every year before the season starts. Who's your breakout candidate for the upcoming season? This is no different than that. But it's a different, season. It's a set of different players. And so I want to know who's the guy that you view as a candidate to have a massive season in 2022. I'll give you mine, and then I'll look forward to hearing what you think and what guy you think is going to have a potential outbreak of a season in 2022. So the guy that I'm pegging as my breakout candidate is a guy that's kind of been on the cusp multiple times, but really once. But you kind of saw it coming after the hot finish to his rookie season, and then it kind of spilled over into his second year in the league. And I thought he was starting to really get it going right before he sustained an injury. Then his brother was murdered, and there were a lot of different things going on in his life, and he ended up not finishing the season on the field. And that's, of course, Montez Sweat. He had his fifth-year option picked up this offseason, which means, in effect, he's in a contract year now. Technically speaking, he's got 2 years left on his rookie deal because they picked up that fifth-year option. But if you really love a player, as we're seeing now with Daron Payne, you don't allow that player to get into that fifth year. So Jonathan Allen is a prime example of when you love a guy, you find a way to get the deal done the year before they go into the last year of their deal, because you don't want to go into a situation where that guy could become a free agent, or he gets to start thinking about free agency. You want to lock him up before that last year of his deal, right? So Jonathan Allen was going into the season which he would have been playing his final year of his rookie deal. They locked him up long term, and they got that situation resolved. Daron Payne is going into the final year of his deal this year, and there is no signs of Washington re-signing him at this current juncture. Now, I could be wrong, and they could be working on a deal simultaneously with him and Terry and looking to get both of those guys locked up. But as far as I'm concerned, I think they're done with Daron Payne after this upcoming season. Now, again, things could change. It's a fluid situation. He goes out balls this season, has 11.5 sacks, and is dominant against the run. They may say, you know what, that's the Daron Payne that we were looking for when he was, drafted in the first round back in 2018. Yeah, we would like more of that. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like they are interested in long-term Daron Payne. Now, I think Montez Sweat has a chance to solidify his roster spot here in Washington as a guy that they really can count on. And so in 2020, he had 9 sacks. That was a career high. I thought he was the most improved player on the roster in 2020. I thought he was one of our most disruptive forces, along with Chase Young on that defense. Cam Curl was also outstanding in 2020 defensively, but I thought Montez Sweat was a tone setter that year. He was dominant against the run. You could not run to his side of the football field. He was a very disruptive pass rusher, and he made plays. You remember the Dallas, interception for the touchdown. He was a guy that just always seemed to be around the action, and so you couldn't throw screens to his side. He'd bat those in the air. I just see this being a year where Montez Sweat finally puts it all together, knowing that the contract situation is really on the line here. I think this is his opportunity to prove to the organization that you didn't make a mistake. As a matter of fact, I'm probably better than Chase Young, and I'll prove it to you this year. And I think he's got a chance to do that, and I think he will ultimately do that. I think he will lead this team in sacks. All right, so I don't know if this is, you heard it here first. I don't know if this is me making a bold statement or a hot take. I don't know if that's any of that. some of you think Chase Young stinks anyway, and he's coming off of injury, so there may be a bit of pause as to what we will get from Chase Young, and not really wanting to declare anything from the former number 2 overall pick. But I can tell you this much: Montez Sweat to me is the more athletically gifted. I'm not saying much by saying that, but he's the more gifted of the 2 pass rushers, if you ask me. He's got a skill set that is unmatched by many in the league, and I think he's got a chance to be special, and I think he proves it in 2022. If he's healthy, I think Montez Sweat is a double-digit sack getter for the very first time in his career. I think he leads this team in sacks, and I think he's every bit of 12.5, 13.5 sacks in the upcoming season if he stays healthy and puts everything that he was blessed with together, and I think that he will. What says you? Who's going to be that player for you in the upcoming season that has a breakout campaign? Leave it down in the comment section. Can't wait to read your responses. So what I wanted to also come on and talk about is something that I've been talking about for the last month, and that's the defensive tackle position. Ever since the draft and really going even back a little bit further than that when we traded for Carson Wentz, it was a domino effect. We had to kind of cut costs, and there were cap casualties, and one of those cap casualties was Matt Ioannidis. We also lost another defensive tackle in depth via free agency in Tim Settle, who went to the Buffalo Bills. And so it left us really with a bare cupboard at the defensive tackle position behind the 2 Alabama starters in Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. So obviously they drafted Phidarian Mathis, I think, out of necessity, but they're still, to me, a void next to him on the bench in terms of depth. And I've talked about a veteran being added, and I know there was a discussion that we had on the live stream the other day. Someone said, hey, I don't know if they're going to bring in a veteran. I think they really like, Daniel Wise, and they like David Bada. And I'm like, that may be the case, but I don't think, just like the linebacker position where Ron has been pretty adamant that they would like to add a veteran, they may like some guys that are on the roster. They don't love any of those guys. I think it's the same way with the defensive tackle position. They may like some of those guys. I don't think they love any of them enough to say, hey, you are good enough to get the job done should we have a situation occur with one of our starters and you're thrusted into the spotlight and a bigger role having to be the first guy off the bench potentially if Phidarian Mathis is forced into the starting lineup. So I just don't see that being the case. I think they will add a veteran defensive tackle. I've talked about them adding a veteran defensive tackle, and I'm adamant that they're going to add a veteran defensive tackle. And here's further proof, and I think you guys have seen this already. If you haven't, you'll see it now. So this was a tweet from ESPN insider Field Yates, in which Field Yates discloses that a defensive tackle became available. He was cut, and he was passing through waivers, and 8 teams put in a waiver claim for him. John Kaminsky is a guy that I talked about. I think he was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons back in like 2019, a big guy out of a smaller school, and he became available, and 8 teams put in a waiver claim, and we're going to run through these teams real quick. Lions, Colts, Browns, Texans, Cardinals, Vikings, Bengals. None of that really, resonates with us. But then the Commanders is also one of the 8 teams that put in a waiver claim. Now, Detroit had top priority. Obviously, they were the number 2 pick in the draft last year, and that's how the waiver claims work. The teams, the team that is the worst, perceived to be the worst, and had the worst record the year prior, gets the preference, and so they were able to get top priority on John Kaminsky. Hence, he is now a member of the Lions. Had the Lions not put in a waiver claim, then Washington would have been the next team up. No, the Texans would have been. The Texans would have been next, and then after the Texans, Washington would have been, I think, the team with the next highest priority. But nonetheless, forget about all of that. The bottom line is Washington put in a waiver claim for John Kaminsky, meaning they're looking for veteran defensive tackle help. That's what that tweet from Field Yates pretty much says to me. And I've been talking about that for a very long time. I can't see a way in which Washington is comfortable going into the season with their defensive tackle position as is. I just don't see that being the case. They're going to add a veteran, and Kaminsky fits the timeline. He's a guy that's probably right around 27, 28 years old, maybe 29 at max, but he's not 30-something years old. That's the kind of guy that they're looking for. Someone that's still in his mid to late 20s with still good football, prime football left in front of them. They're not looking for the 33-year-old veteran, the 35-year-old Linval Joseph type of guy. That's not what they've done in free agency here in Washington. They've gone after the younger players to help this roster stay youthful, and they've added a veteran here or there, but for the most part, when we add a player, it's not a guy that's 35 years old. It's not a guy that's 32 years old. Now, I know those Carolina Panthers offensive guards that they added, they're probably pushing 30, if not already over the age of 30. But offensive line is a little bit different. It's a little bit different. And the familiarity with those guards coming from Carolina, already having a working relationship with John Masco and also playing their best football of their careers under John Masco also makes a huge difference with those two particular players in Trey Turner and Andrew Norwell. But for the most part, we've been a team since Ron Rivera has gotten here that has stayed away from the elder statesmen of the league. We've kind of gone after younger free agent opportunities. So that kind of fits the timeline, and that's the kind of player they're going to be looking for. But trust me when I tell you, and I've said this a million times, and I'll say it a million more, we're going to add at least one more defensive lineman, and I think it's going to be a veteran, a young veteran, but a veteran nonetheless. I don't think they're in love with what they have behind Fedarian Mathis in terms of depth on the D-line. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear from you on that subject matter as well. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. You know what it is. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, post up and take command. You guys enjoy your weekend, and we'll chop it up next week. Looking forward to all the festivities that the weekend will bring, including the NBA Finals. Enjoy all of that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk Commanders football next week. Enjoy the weekend. Have a good one.